I think we're on. All right, welcome to community conversation number, I don't know, 5, 6? For those that don't know me, I'm Chris Cavino. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Academics.
Jessica Hurt, Assistant Principal here at Hinsdale Central.
John Med, Department Chair for Career and Tech Ed for Hinsdale Central and Hinsdale South.
And our topics tonight include, well, I'll get to those in a second, so maybe my clicker's not working. Earned honors credit, and some survey results and some metrics based on the first semester of our pilot. And then after that, so we hope to spend about 30 to 40 minutes talking through that, we'll stop occasionally. We have done this format-wise differently almost every single time based on how many people were here and who wanted to actually talk. So because we have a relatively small group, we thank you for coming. We'll kind of just leave it open, I think, to conversation throughout. So if you have questions, you can pause, or if you want us to move back and forth between slides, we can certainly do that. Okay, good.
There we go.
Our purpose really was just to open up another communication option for people to ask questions, to get clarification, to register concerns, to ask us to look for things. And if you have not seen these or been here before, I know 2 of you have. I think you're maybe new for us. The next meeting we have is called the Parent Teacher Advisory Council, and we use feedback or questions that get asked here to either augment that presentation or to shore up the information that we provide so it's more accurate. So that's kind of our purpose. We just ask that you be open-minded, you respect the process. This is really part of a multi-stage communication process that we want to engage in for very specific topics that might be new, might be unheard of, and this is certainly one of them. Although our second topic shouldn't be unheard of, it's been around for nearly a decade. We're just kind of catching up, and John's doing a great job, so we'll get there by the end of the presentation. It's about career pathways and some state mandates that we are working on. That's kind of our structure. So here's our 2 topics, and we're going to jump into earned honors credit, if that's okay. Jessica and I have been attempting to be the spokespeople for this. Jess has done the heaviest lift of all administrators, right next to people like, and John serves 2 roles tonight. He's also the department chair of a department that has an earned honors credit class, which is Intro to Business, in addition to the English and art classes. So, do you want to take this one and jump in with what and how?
Yeah, sure. So big picture, as we were just taking a look at what are opportunities for students, holistically when we started talking about the alignment. And so we're looking at certain groups of students and trying to figure out, okay, what are their paths, right? We always want students to try new things, stretch themselves. And we found out that certain structures that we have within the district prohibited.
This is Dr. Carrie Smith. She's our Assistant Superintendent for Student Services.
And so certain structures sometimes didn't lend themselves to students having the opportunity to stretch themselves. And so we started taking a look at, are there students within our district who are meeting state and national benchmarks, but are not finding a path to honors or AP coursework? And we found that there are students. And so yes, there are students who are making choices for balance, right? They maybe have, they're a triple varsity athlete or something like that. These are not the students I'm talking about. I'm just talking about students that maybe have not been able to find, I like to call it an on-ramp, to more rigorous coursework. And so is there something structurally that we could do within our district to encourage students to try it out? We know that there is a lot of research that supports students increasing their rigor in high school because it's a safe environment. I'm putting like the safe in finger quotes because unlike, I think, not safe when you get to college and you're like, I'm gonna try something and it costs 20 grand, right? Like that to me seems dangerous. So what could we do within our district? So we worked with a couple of area districts, Evanston, OPRF, Latin School, and they've been doing this work for quite a while. And it looks really different in their buildings. A lot of their work was at the freshman level. And so we decided, gosh, where are places in our curriculum that we could take a look to figure out, could students be in a regular level class and through demonstration of sophistication of thought or product or differentiation of resources, they could earn honors credit within that course. We found after speaking to students and doing groups and speaking to teachers that some students, just that title of honors or AP, they didn't even want to tackle it. Like it was like, oh gosh, that's not me. I don't see myself as an AP student. That's some other type of student. But these students were hitting the state and national benchmarks. And so to me, that's like a psychological thing, right? That's like, okay, these students have a perception of themselves, or they have a perception of the curriculum that they're not capable. When they have peers that have similar achievement, benchmarks, data, all that stuff that are attempting that work, right? And so could we develop that? So we took a look, and we had 2 new English classes this year that rolled on for our juniors and seniors, one art class and then intro to business, which allowed us to take this pilot. So that's what you see on the screen. So I think our next, yeah.
Just to make sure that we're saying though, the curriculum for these courses was not altered. It was written at the college career, regular track level, right? But, right, what we have added are additional pieces based on the type of curriculum in the course that allows for the student to do the stretching that Jessica was talking about and to sort of experience a more rigorous, to attempt more rigorous work at their own pace potentially and even at their own choosing, right? And we'll show you sort of some of the statistics or the data on how students opted into that coursework over the course of the semester.
There was some other, just to add on to that, so like an introduction to business, one of the things, we have objective, traditional, true, false, multiple choice tests that students would take, and we had, like our first unit is economics, but we also had some short answer stuff about inelasticity of demand, some of that deeper stuff that we go over, but just asking questions for students to basically be able to identify those and just some of those higher level thinking questions that they can then share back with us. We also do project-based stuff, so there's things like during our interviewing unit, they're videotaping themselves and doing a mock interview. We had some other extra things that students were actually working on that went along with their resume. Some people started a LinkedIn page, some things that were just, we want you to get a career, and what does that look like? And then we just wanted to make sure that there was some deeper thought that went into it.
Yeah, we have a couple slides that explain some part. So just like John said, so again, because these courses we're taking, 2 English courses and an art course and intro to business. So again, across different subject areas. And so this idea of this extended thinking questions or tasks or resources. So it's not about just doing more, right? It's not saying, okay, in this class, I'm taking it I'm not trying to attempt earned honors, so I'm going to have to do problems 1 through 10. John wants to do earned honors, and so he's going to try in a worksheet to do a couple extra. It's not about doing more, it's about that depth, and it's truly about the sophistication. And to be honest with you, a lot of this came out of the work of the College Board. They started with their AP Lang exam, giving a point for sophistication. And so, like a couple years ago, David Lang's like, I'm obsessed with this. He's our English department chair. He's like, I'm obsessed with this idea. And so we started writing these rubrics that have these extensions on the rubric. Because if you say you have a rubric that's 1 to 4, well, what could 5 be? What are our students who are able to demonstrate additional thought or deeper thought? And so from a research perspective and pedagogical perspective, I think most people are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy. And so if you look on the right, there's something, I'm obsessed with that wheel, and that is Webb's depth of knowledge chart. And so everyone always asks like what teachers do on early release Wednesdays. I'll demystify that with, we literally take a look at assessments, and we take a look at assessment data, and we figure out, okay, on tests, on assessments, our questions, or most of our questions, level 1, is it, recall, are we talking about skill and concept? We want students to get down to this bottom part, this extended thinking, or in Bloom's taxonomy, the synthesis evaluation, because that's real world thought, right? It's not often, if you can Google it, remember people are always like, okay, if you can Google it, it shouldn't be on a test, right? We say that all the time to our students, because in the real world, if you're doing a task, think how many times you Google it. You guys are probably all way smarter than me, but if there's a video for it, I'll watch the video, right? We want our students to be able to apply, to synthesize, to create new understandings from those understandings. How do we create courses that push those students to do it? Courses like AP courses naturally do it, because that's part of the College Board curriculum. How do we make sure that we have courses that are accessible for students to dip their toe into that type of thinking, to say, gosh, maybe I am capable of taking an honors class or an AP class. Because lots of students have just never been around that type of thinking or those type of assignments before. So this is, again, to embed all this in research. This is not just something that we like cooked up on a random day, decided to do it. So there's some very substantive research, and it's not research, not new research. It goes back quite a bit. I just wanted to draw these points out that the exposure to rigorous coursework is very important. I used to teach world cultures here in this building, and I also taught AP government. A lot of my world culture students, so our regular level freshman social studies class, they believed that smart kids or honors kids just rolled out of bed and came and got straight A's. Like I would say this all the time to them. I'm like, no, like they've learned skills. And yes, some people have just amazing intellect, right? We know we have outstanding students and we have just super geniuses. The vast majority of students that are doing well have all those ideas and they have these skills, right? And we call them habits of mind. So they know they have executive functioning skills. They know when a teacher starts giving directions that they should be listening. They write stuff down. They take their notes and they retype their notes. All of these things that we know that successful students do. We also know that in a lot of rigorous coursework, like honors and AP classes, teachers present stuff in maybe a little bit different way. And so we want students to be able to learn those skills in a safe environment. So just this exposure to high achieving peers being in that same class, research says that that benefits not only students' ability of what they see in themselves, but also is showing that they're more willing to stretch themselves. Because if I see John doing that thing that I'm like, man, that's so hard, I don't think anyone would ever do that, and I know him, we're in the same class, he's doing it, well, maybe I'll give it a shot. Maybe that teacher can encourage that student to do that. And so within this earned honors credit environment, students can challenge themselves and develop something that's really important to student success, which all of you know, grit, that stick-with-itness, right? We always want students to be able to push themselves. And how do you develop that in a safer environment? So again, it's about building those on-ramps. Some students, they had that on-ramp in second grade, right? Because their second grade teacher says, I see something in you. You're doing a great job. Boom, done. They're on that. There's some students who've not had that yet. And can we create a structure within our school to provide students that opportunity?
One of the things that we had to tackle a little bit right at the beginning of establishing this pilot was the difference between hard and rigorous, right? And this is something that the educational world talks about a lot. And one of the things that, you know, if you've been in this district for a long time, I'm obviously not saying that I have, right? But what I'm hearing from a lot of people when they talk about a class like, well, you changed how hard it was in honors biology, right? And when we dip into that, what that means is that kids had to memorize a lot of things on the first few tests, and it sort of like weeded out the group. And that became what was like really hard about that class. And there's of course a place for that type of work. But what we're kind of talking about here is the difference between sort of hard and rigorous. And here's one way to think about it. Our hardest classes force students to remember and recall vast amounts of information, right? If we take a look, that's what this is. That's the level 1. If you could see this, and I know that your mic, your telescope, or whatever you need, all those words up there are words like, you know, that are about remembering or recalling. They're very simple words, right? And there is a place for that, and it's good for students to acquire information. But what we want in our most rigorous classes, what is in every advanced placement framework, right, is this extended thinking based on the application, evaluation, creation of your learned, found, or generated work, right? So yes, a student who has vast amounts of information that they can recall immediately may have an edge in that creation, right? But the act of creating or evaluating or synthesizing or applying itself is the rigorous work. And that's what we make sure that all of our earned honors credit assignments are focused on, which is why you will see, if you pulled up the rubrics or some of the assignments, those words, which, Jess, I bet you're looking up right now, right? The words in level 4, which you can't see, design, connect, synthesize, apply, I can't read the rest of them, but those are the types of words that we see in extended thinking assignments. And that's what we're trying to put into these courses, and what we're trying to focus on in this pilot, right, over the course of, the last 5 months and actually into the next semester. So those 4 courses, the Intro to Business course is a year-long course, and it's still going. Same kids from first semester to second. The second semester, because their semesters of the English classes are now in session. And we have or have not, we do have a music exploration course. Art exploration, not music, art exploration, this semester as well. So, because we wanted to be efficient and we wanted to tie some metrics to it, this is what we said we were going to look at over a year ago when we started talking about the Earned Honors Credit pilot. Thinking about like how we measure the efficacy of the pilot. And we've added some thoughts to this, but in general, these are some of the pieces that we've been looking at, and we have some data to report tonight. How many students are on track to earn honors credit? How many students are going to continue in an honors sequence, meaning like I did this, and now I realize I can do it, so now I'm going to attempt another honors class. That type of thinking. Demographics of students, we've been talking about how we would like to see the demographics of our honors program look like the demographics of our building, right? And so we have some numbers on that. Number 4, we actually can't talk about yet because the students haven't taken spring assessments. Level of success in the assessments and the courses. But 2 of the biggest features, and really, I think for me, I don't want to speak for you guys, the most enlightening part is hearing and seeing the student and parent feedback. Less parent feedback than we would have liked, but that seems to be a trend these days. If you haven't filled out your 5 Essential survey, you are one of the 96% who have not. Please do. Yes, that statistic is correct. Only 4%. Is that south or here?
I think it's total.
Okay, total. Okay. So please go do that and tell 5 friends, and then check on them to make sure they did. Right. So student feedback, we had well over 400 students fill out the survey, which was great. We'll get to that data here in a second. So here's just some information. Actually, let's pause. Questions, thoughts, things you'd like to ask, or should we keep going?
I'll ask at the end.
Okay.
Are you sure? So we're going to get into just like number stuff.
Well, because I had some similar questions about like how many students and all that. So
That'll be answered.
Yeah, and then but then I have sort of bigger, more global questions, which you've already heard kind of sort of, but so I want to listen.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you.
All right, so just to kind of walk through what you're seeing here, answering the question, did being in one of these courses influence a student to take another course, right? And we talked in terms of scheduling about word of mouth. When students find an experience to be valuable, they usually tell their friends. So anyway, this is what the next year looks like, right? It's next year at Hinsdale Central. So this year we had 116 students enter Intro to Business. Next year we have 177, right? And you can see the numbers, 51 in creative nonfiction up to 113. So we have a total of a 51% increase in students taking an earned honors course over last year. Yeah.
Okay, I actually have a question about this
Sure.
slide. So if we, based on what Jessica was saying, you're trying to reach the student who is not the traditional honors and AP student, who hasn't done honors and AP classes, or maybe that's too broad, maybe it's like a particular subject they have done. So are you tracking at all how many of those 348 or 527 are actually taking?
Yes.
Okay, great.
It's coming.
Love it.
Okay.
Okay, this is what, okay.
Here's South. That creative nonfiction is a big number, but it started only at 14. So students at South, and obviously the 0 to 39, because Exploring Visual Arts just didn't even run. But now, it's going to run in 2 sections. So that's sort of a big shift. So if we're asking, and by the way, if you're thinking to yourself, well, did all the kids come out of AP classes? The answer is actually no. The AP classes either stayed at their same level or increased, both AP Lit and AP Lit. Right? So we didn't cannibalize the AP classes here. Students still took those, but a different group of students are choosing to take these.
Is that true South and Central? Or are you
Yes.
talking about the slide?
Yeah, no, it's the same. It's the same for both buildings.
All right,
Go
so
ahead.
clarification on this.
these are not the total number of students who enrolled in this class, these are the ones that opted for the honors credit within that class.
No, these are the total number of kids. Yeah, these are the
And
total.
all the kids who are enrolled in these classes are on the honors track, or how do they opt in?
We'll get there. But yes, yeah, they are not all. So you could be in this class and say, you know what, I think I'm gonna try that first assignment. And then it was like too much work for you, and you could just say, I'm not gonna do any more of those. I'm just gonna do the regular stuff. And I can earn an A in Intro to Business, and I can move on with my Intro to Business. What's next? Business law. I can go, if I want to stay or do whatever. But there is another group of students who would have said something opposite. We actually have some more specific data on that. A little bit of a look at our demographics. So the demographics of the pilot are actually similar to the overall demographics of the school. Right? So if you take a look down on the left side, that's the percentage of total students by demographic, and then on the right, the total students enrolled in the earned honors credit classes. The one thing you'll notice that's different, though, is on this slide. What's on the left are the total number of students again, and then this is the total number of students in traditional honors and AP classes. So we're seeing an increase in both Black students and Hispanic students in the earned honors credit classes than in the traditional AP classes. Now, the question about did those students that attempt the work, right, is here. And it's not as many as we would have liked, right? If we're just looking at pure demographics, we have an underrepresentation of the Black and Hispanic students that are actually earning the honors credit while in those classes. Right? So this is the type of data that is pretty macro in nature that we probably have to dig in with the teachers and sort of figure out exactly what was going on. Maybe even talk to the students a little bit more closely if this was something that we wanted to investigate further. So here is a slide, this might help with the question from earlier, and it's a little bit difficult, I think, when you think about it, if we explain. So this is the number of students enrolled at Hinsdale Central in psychology and lit. This is the number of students who are moving, this is the number of students from this group who have now enrolled in another honors class or AP class in that same subject area. So of the 41 students, we didn't do it at South, at Hinsdale Central, who were in exploring visual arts, 6 of them decided, I'm going to keep going with honors work in art, right? Of the 140 in psych and lit at Hinsdale Central, 35 of the 140 decided, I'm going to keep going in honors or AP. Actually, it would just be AP, right? And 7 from South and so on. So you can actually see how this looks, and these are the percentages, right? So it's just kind of, it varies all across the board, but there is a notable number of kids that decided, because I was in this, well, we're making the assumption that it's causal, right? Maybe it's just a coincidence, but they were in the class and they now decided to go on. We would associate causality to it because of what they said in their survey, which we'll come to in just a second. So here's survey results. Don't mind the darkness, it's just going to keep doing that about every 10 minutes out there.
I'll turn it back.
All right, so here's who took the survey. It's a little bit small. It mirrors, though, just about who took it. So more students took earned honors credit classes at Central. There are more students at Central, and we didn't run one of the courses due to low enrollment, right, at South. So about 70% of students responded were from Central and 30% from South. They were from a variety of different grades. The majority of them are from Intro to Business because that was the most often taken earned honors credit class. So all of this makes sense with the total enrollment of the students. So here's a question we asked them. Before taking this class, how many other honors classes have you taken? So 32% of the students who responded had taken none. Right? So what we're talking about, so a third, right, just about a third of all students in earned honors credit classes had not yet been exposed to an honors class or had taken an honors class in the past. Yes?
How did the freshmen answer? Because they've never taken one before because they were in 8th grade. So
That's true. We can break that down.
There's
That's a great point.
There's not accelerated in 8th grade. There's not enriched.
I guess there is, like, I don't know, I
There's
know.
math and English correct?
Yeah, so,
6th through 8th grade.
yeah, but I don't know if that would correlate to an honors class in high school. that what
Well,
you're
we
saying?
would also probably have to ask the question slightly differently, because
Yeah,
you
sure.
would
Well, we
assume
can
that
do-
some of them
yeah,
might
yeah,
say, sure, I
yeah.
have.
I know,
Because there's
my
a-
daughter's taking one of these classes, and she's a freshman, and she put 0, and she's in 2 other honors classes as a freshman. So really, it's not a 0, but she's like, I didn't take one before. She didn't count 8th grade as something, because it's a totally different district.
Yeah, we can clarify that.
No, that's a really good point.
Yeah, because
That's a good point, yeah.
I know that some students would have put yes, because they've taken one before.
And do you break down the data based on grade?
We did not for this,
Okay.
but we can, that,
Well, an
yes.
example, with her daughter is not one of the students this was designed to reach. She does not have a problem taking honors, but she's taking 2 others. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Well, yes and no. It's not what that audience, but what we have found out is there's a whole different audience of
Yeah.
students as well, who, because of the subject area, they might not have taken the class, but they do consider themselves an honors student. Let's say, like my daughter
Right.
thinks she can only read and she can't do math, and my
Right.
son's the exact opposite. You know,
Right.
it would be, you know, for one of them, it would be stretching in the subject area they don't feel very confident in. And then there's also the student who is taking multiple things and says, you know what, I need to play this one safe and see if I can do some of the work, and if I can't, I'm still
But
good.
don't we have any, as a freshman, don't we have non-honors English, non-honors
Yes.
business law, non-honors art classes? Why would a student need to take earned honors credit in a class where we already offer a non-honors and AP option?
Those are, I'm confused. I mean, these are all these classes.
These are all
regular.
non-honors options.
That's,
every
they're
single
all
one.
regular
They're
classes.
earned, but
You
they
don't
have
have to
honors
commit to
credit.
it.
No, what I'm saying is.
But what, they all enroll in
Right.
Intro to Business. Intro to Business is a
Absolutely.
regular level course.
Got it. But what I'm saying is they have the option of earning honors credit for a non-honors class.
It is
And
not.
It's not the same as an honors class,
And what are you basing that on?
based on my kids taking 10 years of honors and AP classes.
And have they taken any of the earned honors
No,
courses?
but what you're saying is in an honors class, and I'll get into this, I mean, obviously, I feel
No,
like
this is the right time.
Every single day, Jessica, in an honors and AP class, these kids have higher expectations of homework, higher expectations of class participation, the assessments, the expectations of teachers, the grading, every single thing, every single day. That is a true honors class. That deserves that GPA bump. That deserves that extra boost. 100%. This, in my opinion, does not, and let me back up. I mean, I don't know if it's the right time for this. I support trying to get more kids in these classes. I had a conversation with Bruce Law about this years and years and years ago. He said it's one of his biggest frustrations.
The kids in the middle?
Yeah,
Oh, I think that's.
yeah. Well, yeah, it's absolutely. And I, living in this community for 22 years, I have 3 kids who've been through high school, 2 in college now. Absolutely, I know so many students who tried to take an AP bio as an example class, or AP this or AP that, and were just slammed by the rigor, or were unafraid, or were afraid to take that. You know, maybe you wanted to be a nurse, and you had a passion for science, and you wanted to try to take, but you were afraid to, and you didn't have that confidence. Absolutely, we've missed those kids, and I do support this goal. My problem is that by doing this, you are disadvantaging the true honor students, and there's a lot of them. And you are.
Can you unpack
The
that?
GPA, well,
How does-
How are they
how does this-
disadvantaged?
how does
That-
this-
That's,
the
How does
GPA
this
bump.
impact
The
the
GPA bump.
But how does this impact the students who are already in all honors and AP classes?
Well, not even on all.
Or any?
Even-
So how does it disadvantage any
Okay.
student who's already in honors and AP?
Okay, well, let me back up. Okay, so I'll get into I do support, and I have other ideas about how to get the kids in the middle. And I'm just curious, maybe you guys have already tried this. But if we earn honors credits are different than honors classes and AP classes, by their very nature. It's
and
different.
by design,
And by design.
we agree.
Absolutely.
And just to be super, super clear,
Mhm.
because I don't like speaking in hyperbole.
Yep.
Because not everything. So there's difference amongst
Yep.
honors classes.
100%.
And there's difference amongst AP classes.
100%.
So a class like, I taught AP government here for a decade.
Right?
That course is very, very different as far as AP computer science principles.
Right, right. But everybody knows what those differences are. The College Board knows, college admissions knows, students know, everybody knows. It's very transparent. There's a huge difference between AP Computer Science A and AP Computer Science Principles. Huge difference. Sure. I get to take it both. Absolutely, huge difference. There's also huge differences between teachers teaching the same class. I agree. Massive differences, and I've talked about that with both of you and lots of people for 10 years. And that is a huge factor. So I get that. But and I don't think it's good. I don't think that variation between teachers is good. It's a major stressor for students in this district and one that should have been resolved 10 years ago. But some very easy changes, I believe. But, I just think that the differences between AP classes, everybody knows what they are. Everyone knows the easier ones and the more difficult ones. The honors classes, maybe not as obvious to people, maybe not as obvious, but schools, colleges, parents, if you're in a community long enough, you know the ones that are more difficult than others. But this is by design, we're creating this difference, and we're awarding credit for something that is, in many cases, very significantly different as far as the difficulty that these students have to deal with, undergo whatever in order to get this credit. So, you're talking about the day in, day out expectations. These kids that do these honors classes, they're giving up time for other classes. It's impacting their other grades in other classes. It impacts their GPA. It impacts the time that they spend with friends and family, their extracurriculars, their time with friends. It's just not fair. And, if you're talking about, 130 kids, giving, and it's going to get bigger every year because mark my word, I've been in this community for 22 years. When word gets out, you are going to have more and more people taking these classes for that GPA bump. And it's going to give every kid who does, unless you limit the number of the kids who take these classes, you say this is only for kids who have never taken an AP or honors class, either in total or in a particular subject or something like that. Because I would advise my kids, except for the fact that I believe that certain colleges are going to look at these classes. And I don't remember, did you say that they are noted on a transcript? That this is
If the
earned
student
honors
has
credit?
earned the credit, it will appear as an honors course on the transcript.
Okay. Can you help me with the part of how this harms
Because it's not
A
as
honors?
difficult.
But how does that impact a student who's in honors and AP?
Because those kids are doing the true honors work.
So
Every single
So
day.
how does that
every single classroom.
impact?
Because the GPA, Jessica, they're getting the GPA bump for significantly less work.
Sure.
Could we say it a different way?
But
Yes.
colleges don't compare students to each
100%
other.
they do. I've had so many admissions department people tell me that.
They can.
Yes, side by side. And the reason I know this is with my children are recruited athletes, and we've had to do the pre-reads, we've had to do the admissions discussions, and absolutely, they say to you, well, it looks like you're going to get in, but it really depends on who else applies from Hinsdale Central. It absolutely is a factor.
So it doesn't harm them. You're saying it's not
I
fair.
said it disadvantaged. It's not fair. And again, I don't want to take anything away from this middle group. I would love for us to figure out a way to onboard these kids into these classes because there are so many. I just think with the resources we have, including, people like you, Jessica and Chris, and amazing teachers, there has to be a way that we can do this without, and, go ahead, I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot of my airtime, and it's becoming too much.
I just want to give a perspective because I have two kids who graduated from the 86 and who are now in the business world. They graduated from college as well.
Yep.
I have a senior and I have a freshman. My freshman never took an honors class ever before coming to Central. So it is possible for non-honors kids to become honors kids. She took into the business not because of the earned honors. That was just an opportunity. It was something that my sons took that I thought was a great class, a good world learning class. So I said to my younger kids, you are taking into the business regardless of your interest because it's a good intro class.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you, she's in 2 honors core classes, 2 regular core classes. She works just as hard in her intro business class as her 2 honors classes. And in fact, there are nights she spends more time on that. It's not easy. And she actually had her brothers critique one of her major projects. She turned in a 28-page project. Had her brothers critique it. And their comment was, because they both are now in the business world, I wish there was an honors intro to business class when I was at Central. Because I was delving a little bit deeper. Like I got the same A as someone who did surface level work. So for them, they're like, you're finally earning what you deserve because you turned in 28 pages, far above and beyond the standard level grade requirement for that project. They were actually applauding Hinsdale Central saying, I wish I had gotten that honors because I worked that hard because they ended up obviously loving business. They're both in the business world now. It is not any easier than the honors classes. I can tell you this. The number of hours that she has spent on this class is because of that slightly deeper level that they're expecting. And she asks herself, is that more? You know, and she was not one of your top students. Again, she never qualified for any honors classes before Central. So she would have been that middle of the road kid that would have gotten lost. But she was encouraged and did well enough that she was able to do this. This class, I thought, just take it. We'll try the honors. If not, it's okay. It actually is exactly what you guys wanted to experiment. And I'm going to tell you, after the second assignment, she's like, Mom, I don't know if I can do the honors part. It's a lot. And I said, just try. And if you get it, that's great. If not, you try it. She got it. And so it's not a give me. It is not a give me. And I hear a lot of people in the community saying it's just a give me honors. And I can tell you, it's not a give me.
Yeah. It's hard to, thank you so much for your opinion on driving down our good experience. It's hard to compare though, because who knows, different students would have different experiences. What's difficult for your daughter may or may not be difficult for another student.
Can we hold on to that one?
Yep.
Because that's perfect.
Yep.
Let's not compare.
Yep.
Let's look at what the data said, right? Because what I heard was, let's compare to my brothers. I heard let's compare to 10 years worth of experience. So let's like, if we can, let's put a hold on that and look at what the kids are actually doing. Rather than saying it's different than it was 10 years ago, or it's better for the business world, let's just say, here's what they're doing and evaluate it based on that. Because I think that you're going to see in their comments, which you should have gotten to 10 minutes ago. It's my fault. I'm supposed to be the facilitator, right? But there's going to be a lot of that. But I think that it might be important for all of these discussions, and for us too, when we're having these, to say, let's try and pause on what we always have known this to be, because that's what we're trying to change. We don't move the middle unless we make a change. The middle has been the same for decades, since Dr. Law and you had that conversation a decade ago, right? And so we have to embrace some difference, and this is our pilot. I just want to really like this is where we are right now. We are talking about 4 classes, and so I'm just going to continue. This we thought was interesting. We asked them, before this, did you think of yourself as an honor student? This is where we did disaggregate based on their answers, right? 20% said no, right? I never thought of myself as an honor student. It didn't matter if they took a class or not, right? So, and then this is what they said. So, now that you've completed this class, how likely are you to enroll in another honors or AP class? Did I skip one? No, I didn't. All right. The vast majority are likely or very likely. So they take another honors or AP class, not an earned honors credit class, an honors or AP class. Now, we broke them down. If a student here said sometime, so this is the 41% of students, right? When we asked this question, we broke it down. 84% were likely or very likely, right, to take another honors or AP class. So these are the sometimes kids. Like sometimes I think of myself as one. Well, about 85% of them are saying I'm going to keep going. We thought that was kind of interesting. Again, not judging it necessarily, but that's what they told us. Now this one, we probably have to dig in some more. These are the kids who said no, right? I did not think of myself as an honor student, right? And then we have almost 45% saying that they are likely to continue with an honors level class. That's a good number. That's 45% of a group of kids, right, that would not have made that attempt in the past. That's the middle that we're trying to look at, right? Especially the kids who would have said, no, I never thought of myself that way, right? So it's, and we call this about academic mindsets. It's to what Jessica was referring to earlier when we were talking about the research for this. Couple other pieces. Taking an honors class is less stressful than taking a typical or regular honors class. My guess is if your daughter responded, she's in that one column over there. To strongly disagree. But about, you can see the majority of students agreed that it was less stressful, but, and this is I think really important, the vast majority agreed that it was a healthy decision. In this world where we're really asking kids to think about like what is the healthiest academic decision we can make, this might be a better option, maybe. At least that's how they reported it. I think the vast majority of them reported it. Right, so that's that. Your earn honors credit classes change your perception of yourself and ability. So which of the following best describes you? And you can see the red is the big one. So 52, almost 53% said, after I learned that I could receive honors credit, I chose to do the required work. Over 50% didn't get into the class for the supposed honors bump. They said, wait a second, I can do honors work here and get that? Count me in. I'm up for it, right? So I thought that was kind of interesting too. Now, this will probably change as word of mouth gets out, but we'll have to see. This is a comparison slide that we can use in the future.
Tell me, can I go back, what about the orange group? I didn't do the honors work at the beginning of class, but decided to during the semester.
Yeah.
Like, when can they decide to do it?
At any point in time, as long as
They
it's...
have to go back and review all the.
No,
Because it's, say if there's like 10 checkpoints, students have to earn honors on 8 of the 10. And so we know that students were nervous, so students who have never attempted it before, maybe they didn't do it the first time, right? But again, it's about the exposure, and it's about working towards it, and they had to get, say, 8 out of the 10.
So there's your number if you asked before how many didn't do it, about 12%. About 12% said, no, I'm out, I'll just take the regular credit. Yeah.
Well, I'll say I also think it's interesting that there were students who like weren't aware, because this is a pilot, so it's good to know
Yeah.
to what extent they intentionally wanted to do that versus like.
And some of the feedback that we captured from them, and especially from the parents too, was just, tell us more about this earlier on. And you know, we like to think we're good communicators, you know, but that is false depending on which group you talk to, or it's right depending on which group you talk to. We put out a lot of information, some FAQs, we sent it directly to the parents, and there were still plenty of parents who said, I had no idea what this is. You know, so, and again, 4% responded to the 5%
So you could go through like a half a semester? Like,
No,
and then all of a
you
sudden-
couldn't get
I just
anywhere
said 8
near
out
that.
of 10, so 80%. I'm talking summative assessments.
Oh, when you said like checkpoint, I didn't know what
Yeah.
checkpoints were.
Assessments,
Okay, okay.
major summative assessments.
Yeah. You really couldn't get more than a couple weeks into the class without.
I know for intra-business, it was on our syllabus, it was spoke, like in the very beginning, it was essentially, the plan is to go through 6 units, you would have to achieve honors on 4 out of the 6 for semester 1 in order to earn.
So, and maybe you're gonna get into this, so tell me if I'm jumping ahead. So, you know, in an honors class, a true honors class, you would have, you know, a higher, every day, a higher level homework, every day.
That would be, that's false.
Yeah, it's
Okay, well,
just not,
maybe
it's just
not
not
true.
true. It's just not true.
Maybe not every day, but,
It's not
so you're telling me that this class is having the same classroom discussion, the same classroom participation, the same discussion from an honors or AP teacher, that that's what these kids are getting every single day or every other day or
Well, it's
whatever.
different. There's not a common experience across honors
I agree.
in District 86. So
Totally.
it's difficult for me to answer that question.
But is the
so-
class in the curriculum designed for an honor student? Or is it designed
We have said
for?
it is a regular level course.
It's a
with
regular level course.
opportunities for our students to demonstrate their sophistication at certain points. That could be in a discussion. That could be, we have discussion rubrics that have extension opportunities. It could be on a summative assessment. It could be with the choice in resources, like the novels that the students are picking. But you're correct, it is different than a traditional honors level course.
So, you know, I don't know what percentage of a class or classroom time period a teacher is speaking to the class. But that experience is for a regular classroom during that time.
We would certainly hope that it's a smaller number than you're actually thinking.
Okay.
The sort of sage on the stage days of
I know, the
education
stage,
really should
yeah,
not
yeah.
be, that's just not best practice.
Okay.
We want student voices, we want them challenging themselves, we want them talking to each other.
Okay.
So this is just about recommendations. Would you recommend the class? Yes. How likely you take another one? Very likely. So some of the things that you might anticipate. I tried to make the font as big as I could. I tried to capture bullet points that were pretty representative of a lot of student opinions. Remember, there were over 400 responses to each one of these questions. So these are direct student responses that we felt were representative of a lot of responses. And in a few cases, you'll see I just put, this was the response of over 400 kids, or whatever. But just to point out a few, I mainly took it because I wanted to do the intro to business, but still take an honors class. Mainly, I did it to boost my GPA. There were students who just said that, yes, outright, and that's okay. Let's not demonize those kids. That's okay. Right? But we also had kids who said, because I wanted to see if I could do these tasks and motivate myself to do better. Like there were some very, some of these are really mature, like very self-aware comments that students made. To be honest, I didn't know it was an honors class at the beginning, but I think it's a great opportunity for average students to possibly get honors credit, and if not, a good grade. Right? So there were students, about 12%, who didn't get any honors credit. They were just in the class, as they would have been a year ago when we didn't have this opportunity. So there are a couple of those. Hopefully you got a chance to read some of those. There are 2 more of these slides, so bear with me. That one was answering why earned honors credit, like why even take the class. This one was answering the question, what are the benefits of the class? Obviously you can see the GPA bump. Somebody says GPA and extra learning, which is true. I can have less stress at AP, but still push myself and receive the credit I deserve. This is a student who's like, yeah.
I mean, I'm seeing a lot of GPA bump. Reading between the lines. I'm seeing a lot of
It's explicit.
strategic,
Which means that's a skill, right? I mean,
less stress of AP. They recognize it's less stress.
And they will not have AP on their transcript.
It receives, correct, but receive the credit I deserve.
We should probably not talk about AP, because AP is a course designed to get you to take a test that exempts you or moves you forward to
It's
college.
less work than your typical honors class with the ability to earn honors, which makes it a lot easier and less stressful.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
But what is wrong with that?
Because you have kids who have chosen to take the true honors and challenge themselves for a variety of reasons, and yet you're rewarding a kid who, and again, great things to try to onboard these kids. If I don't know the answer, I have thoughts, but I am reading these things, and students are by design taking these classes in some cases to get that GPA because they know it's less work and less stress. Where you have the kid over here who said, you know what, I'm going to try to do the true honors class, and they are making sacrifices every day to do that. They are more stressed during the classroom period because there are higher levels of expectations more often. Granted, it varies.
So let's give this student's voice the same amount of credit. I just think we have to be fair to the kids.
You try a little harder on each assignment. I think that's great.
Yeah.
There's, I would say half the stuff in here is really good stuff, and that's what you're going for, and it's a really, really important goal.
Mm-hmm.
But the other half of it is, and again, this is not going to impact my kids. My last one's almost done here. I'm not speaking to my children, but I'm speaking for children like them, who I think have been overlooked in this district a lot. And
if they're being overlooked, this is a way to not have them overlooked.
No,
I feel
I'm
like
talking about different kids.
But if you're moving some kids who never had the opportunity or who didn't have the confidence, and
Right.
it gives them that confidence,
I agree.
we're boosting those
Yep.
group of students up. That doesn't hurt the students who are already high achieving. They're already high achieving.
It's just
That-
not fair. It's just not fair.
It's not about
A rising tide lifts all boats.
That's
Yes.
not true. That's learning for all, raising the floor to raise the ceiling. Lived it doesn't work.
It's not learning for all. This is not,
Well, it's similar.
no, I mean, attaching that is really unfair, and
I
that's,
don't think so. I don't
that's baiting a part of our community when you say that. That's uncomfortable.
I
Yeah, go
want
ahead.
to ask a question, because as you're talking about this, my assumption has been, and I realize you haven't said this, that all current honors classes will change over the course of time to roll out this as an option in all classes.
Nope.
So you will maintain, like, there isn't strictly everyone in this class is an honors class? The English, freshman
Yeah.
English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's an honors freshman
Yep.
English track.
Yep.
Here's an
Yep.
academic,
Yeah.
regular
Yep.
freshman English
Yes.
track.
Yep.
And you could earn honors credit in here.
No,
No.
not for English 1.
But, so in like, in the future, in 20 years from now, like, is that the direction this is going, or just select?
No, I mean, for us, it's honestly select. We're taking a look at, like slices of students who we know have that potential and that we've not been, providing those ramps.
And that makes sense, because I think I'm on OPRF's core content rollout where they're doing
Yep.
it everywhere, and that's different.
Yeah,
So
very different.
No,
Yeah,
this
so
is
same
what- we
concept,
should
but
say that loud.
very different out.
Yeah, this
Very
is
different
not, yeah,
purpose.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, very, very different
But
purpose.
that helps me understand where you're coming from, where that distinction of certain classes are not, certain classes are exclusively honors.
But my understanding is none of these earned honors classes have a counterpart that's only regular or only honors. It's a class that doesn't have that
Yeah.
option.
Okay.
Correct. Nor is it intended to replace an honors class at most of our core classes.
Yeah.
In fact, our math and science people, when we said, hey, we're gonna do this pilot, they're like, you know what, we already have our honors sequence.
And
Let's not mess with that right now.
And to be really clear, like, we're doing this in places we've been doing this for 20 years. In our stacked electives, so in world languages. And so I just have a hard time when you say that there's such a difference when we take a look at when French 1 and French 1 honors have been stacked, German 4 and AP, like, that's the part that just doesn't resonate with me.
I think they're definitely
right,
exceptions.
and
That
so-
was done for years, I believe.
All of
it's
our
there.
languages,
Right.
except for Spanish, do it
Right.
every single year.
Right.
Our classes do it every
Right.
single year, right? Some of our technology education classes do it every single year.
Right.
So that's, I think, the part that doesn't really resonate with me when you're talking about a traditional honors class, because that's just not necessarily what happens, right? So I think that's just the part where, like, we want to use, like, really specific language and, like,
Well,
less,
there are
like,
definitely
these big
exceptions.
brush strokes.
Yeah.
Lots of exceptions. We're
Yeah.
talking about dozens upon dozens upon dozens
So
of
we're
words.
creating more of them. And I guess that's, I mean, in Jessica, because I've talked to you about this years and years ago too. One of my biggest issues is the discrepancy between teachers teaching the same class. I cannot logically understand why that years and years was not more consistent. You could get a completely different grade. You were the same student in this classroom versus the classroom next to you. I just think that is so awful and has created so much stress and anxiety for hundreds of thousands of students at this school. And it's just broken my heart every year to see that. So to me, this seems like you're just doing it again, more.
And I would piggyback, so like my question would be, how are you developing your teachers to create that consistency? And is it your intention to have between an earned honors and like the regular people who teach exclusively AP honors, having those
Yeah.
conversations?
Yeah, that's great. So if it's okay if I know we're
Absolutely. Jump
taking, I don't want to go past 8. Just be respectful.
we're past 8.
I know, we gotta.
Sometimes that too, because
No,
that's
no.
an assumption again in my head, but I
Yeah,
read it
so-
differently from you, that it's not an assumption.
It's not.
Yeah, right, so again, as the human who oversees the alignment of curriculum on the humanities side, it's something that we're being very intentional about, spiraling those skills. So we honestly have not had vertical and horizontal skill alignment in this district, right? It's true, right? And so as part of my job to make sure that those teams, so building, so we'll use English as an example. So making sure that we're creating English 1 and English 1 honors right now. And so bringing that together and how that skill is spiraling so those teachers know and those expectations. Because our goal is to make sure that students have the ability to access whatever path they want, whether that's regular, whether that's honors, or whether that's AP. And so those teachers, a lot of times those teams, so when we created the 2 new English classes, those teachers met with our sophomore level class, our English 2 and our English 2 honors teams, talking about that skill alignment, and then knowing that our goal is to have those students go on to AP, right? And so we need to have that alignment, and that's been cognizant from the beginning and how they're doing it. And they're tweaking all along, but our responsibility is that we don't track the students, so we can't just say like, okay, these kids need these skills. We believe that all those students need those skills. And so we have increased our amount of collaboration in that vertical skill alignment. And then the horizontal skill alignment is really important. And I think a little bit to your point, like a student taking rhetoric, right, making sure that those essential skills, and so we have those with their new junior and senior level English classes, they're mixed together. So no longer, so in the class you have juniors and seniors, so that helped to get to your point, like these are universal skills, right? So whether you're in speech, whether you're in rhetoric, whether you're taking psych and lit, to make sure that fundamentally, whether it's narrative writing, whether it is speaking, literary analysis, so that way we have that strength, so it doesn't matter, right? It's not about that content, it's about that skill, if that makes sense.
The entire curriculum alignment process makes it a priority for teams to be able to talk about curriculum and improvements because they have the ability to talk about the same things, right? So English 1 has the same outcomes, teacher to teacher to teacher to classroom. English 1 honors has the same outcomes, teacher to teacher to your classrooms, and there may be bridges that are built in between, right? As you just said very clearly, that was not your experience. It has not been the experience. How many years? Two decades almost, right? It is now the experience in a number of classes because we are actually making it a priority to do so, right? So when we talk about honors, like when English 1 and English 2 honors are having their discussions, or algebra honors or geometry honors, I was having on geometry honors the other day, they're actually looking at their assessments based on that web's depth of knowledge. So that honors geometry is saying, how many of our questions ask students to apply and analyze? And if the answer is under, I don't know what percent, 50%, they say we gotta throw out some questions, we gotta write more rigorous questions that ask students to do levels 3 and 4, because that is honors work. That's academically rigorous work. If our first unit test asks 100 questions that are complete recall, that is not honors work.
I'm gonna say data.
That's hard. What's that?
I want to ask a data question as you're
Sure.
saying that. And I don't know if it's in the slides, but do you have data about kids who do have an IEP or traditionally like a co-taught class? Because as you're saying that, those like route memory skills tend to be the kids who are not in an honors class because that's the skills that they're lacking. So do you have data on that?
We don't. That's a good question.
But we did, just a full disclosure, we did co-teach both psych and lit, or psych and lit was co-taught those sections. So some of the students that we made sure to, like, it's inclusive on that side of it. Because a lot of our students who, you know, have IEPs for all kinds of reasons are sometimes precluded from accessing
Are
rigorous
those
coursework.
classes that traditionally, have those classes traditionally been co-taught prior to this?
This is the first year for both of those courses.
We had previously routed students with IEPs into very specific junior and senior courses. And now because of the alignment process, we are opening up a lot of options for students with IEPs that did not
Also
exist before.
504s too.
Same
because-
thing.
for sure,
When we say students
Yeah.
with accommodations,
Yeah.
we usually talk about IEPs, but yes, 504s. Students with 504s were typically in a lot of the other classes.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
think there's a
Yeah.
difference. I think we have to understand too, there's a difference between students with IEPs and students with 504s. Because the students with 504s have accommodations and their entire day, you know, many of them, it's within general education. When we're talking about that continuum of services for students with IEPs, they could be receiving services from a special education teacher. They could be receiving services within the gen ed continuum, if gen ed classes, so it's just a little bit different. We just want to make sure we're not kind of
Yep.
mixing the two in together because they're not the same.
I won't fly through, but I'm going to fly through some of the parent responses, very, very similar, about the same breakdowns, except, as you can see, only 57 responses, even though we sent a lot of reminders. So this was apparently, it's just difficult to get people to do surveys. All right, so before taking the class, best describe your child's growth. My child has never enrolled in honors classes, so 30% of the parents said their kids weren't in honors classes. Again, this is 57 or 47 parents. So you can see how those broke down there.
Can we go back, what was the green slide? My child only looks for honors AP classes until their schedule, so 17% of those have answered.
Mhm.
And then 31% my child has taken several honors classes throughout high school. So you're looking at 50% of kids are taking honors classes, taking AP classes, are not the middle that we're trying. But to your point, could be a particular subject that they're trying to stretch in. So I get that. Okay,
Also keeping in mind, 57 versus 420.
I get it.
Right, so,
Totally. It's
yeah.
not even specifically relevant at this point.
Yeah, so, yeah, no, it's probably not, which is why I feel more comfortable flying through some of them, but it is worth taking a look.
Yeah.
You know, strongly agree that this was a good experience. So again, they took it, and I mean, if your point holds true, and 50% took it for the honors, and they said, yeah, it was a good experience, it was a good choice. Recommend to another parent, recommend future honors work. Again, vast majority say yes, they would. And then here's some of the stuff they said. So again, the same 3 questions, why enroll in the class? You'll see bump in GPA there. Look at the second one though, I thought that was interesting. It was nice to have the option of this additional challenge. It was an area of exposure that my child was unsure of, and this gave her the ability to explore confidently with the option of earning an honors credit. That's the type of response I would hope a lot of parents would have. Like, this opened something up for my kid. She felt safe in the class. She stretched herself academically, and I actually don't know if it worked out, but maybe it worked out. This was a class my son was interested in. Towards the bottom, we were extremely excited that honors option was an option for the course. Broadened his perspective on academics, may have difficulty making along the way, but has given him diligence and satisfaction once he finishes. So this is a kid who struggled in the class. You know, so we definitely can't make the assumption that everyone in the class didn't struggle, just as kids who are in traditional honors classes struggle and don't struggle, depending on who they are. Last bullet, you want to challenge yourself. Some of them were really simple comments. Benefits of the class. The second one is interesting and goes, again, right along with what we were hoping the class is. So you can take a look at that. Once you do the fourth one, you can choose to do the work or not. That is a nice benefit. Last one, you became more confident taking the class. Obviously, the GPA bump, I think, like even the bullet point says, the obvious GPA bump upon completion. Ways to improve the course. Almost every parent added nothing, and the second one was add more options. Of the 50 people, those were like repeated dozens of times. But a few others in here. Regarding the GPA bump is fair if you can keep an eye on the rigor, right? And that's true.
Yeah.
But that's also what our course teams do now, that they're sort of talking about honors in a collective way. Before it was just, man, that teacher's really hard. What does that hard teacher do? And now this is the standard on which we measure rigorous academic work. If you want to be in honors class, make sure your kids are analyzing, synthesizing, creating. Make sure they're doing that stuff, not just memorizing 1,000 terms. Ways to improve the course, honors testing makes from the start of the semester. We heard that a lot at the beginning. You can see sort of through some of this, it's about getting to that point, not necessarily getting it from the beginning because you're there though. And then some communication pieces as well. So here's what some of the teachers said. And I will be honest that there were some teachers, particularly the English teachers, who had trouble making this transition. They were like, man, you know, I mean, our partner David Lang was very excited about the sophistication point on the AP exam. When I scored AP exams, it was a 9-point scale. And it was very easy to see who the brilliant writers were and got the 8s and 9s, right? But this notion of sophistication of writing is a little bit more nuanced and a little bit harder to both create rubrics for, to assess, to provide feedback on. I worked with my mentor teacher, I would say as a very young teacher, used to say that 8s and that you're born being able to write 8s and 9s on the old scale, right? Because you just have a way with words, you just internalize language. But there is a way to teach kids to be more sophisticated, and that's one of the things that is more democratic about the advanced placement scoring process now, which is nice. Anyway, so this is some of the stuff they said. So adds a lot of additional prep and record keeping, so the teachers need to work through that. Like to do this a second time around. They found that a lot more kids at the second bullet point are attempting than they thought that they would. Like, I'm teaching this class, man, there are a lot of kids who really want to try. Like that was my impression. I think, John, that was one of your teachers. A lot of students wanted to rework their ideas to make sure that they were honors worthy was the word that the teacher used. So these were just some of the teacher comments, just generally.
That third bullet point, read it in full, it's actually quite interesting.
A lot of students want to rework their ideas and projects since they strive to earn honors. It's different than just signing up and getting it automatically, which I didn't think was a good option. I had students slacking and not creating honors-worthy work, but still earning it in my classes in years prior. So, I mean, that is a testament to, you could be in an honors class and not do honors work and still get the credit.
But
At least that's what that
you're
teacher
gonna get a C.
Not necessarily.
Which is a B.
Hopefully.
Yeah, they know
Which
it.
is a B, but, I mean.
And it defeats the purpose of making the argument that
Yeah.
honors classes are better inherently because they're called honors classes.
Right.
It's about the work that we ask the kids to do. It's about the outcomes.
So I do have a question
Sure.
about data, coming back to data, because as
Yeah.
you bring up GPA and that was coming up a lot, it made me
Mhm.
wonder, question if you have that data on how many kids in earned honors credit got an A or a B or a C, what grade did they actually come out with in the end, and how does that compare to a kid who
Great
like
question.
automatically got some?
The grade distribution of the class.
Yeah, we can pull that for
Did we do
our
that?
P-Tech meeting. I feel like we
Yeah.
started doing it, but we can pull that for the P-Tech meeting.
Yeah.
Right, and just that idea of like, kids can start a little bit later
Yeah.
to start earning it, but does that make a difference between, like, do those kids who wait out the first two projects still get an A versus a kid who's in that other class who, what do they get?
Right, that I didn't participate in the higher level discussions for those first 3 or 4 weeks or whatever.
Sure. And I really want to make sure, we have high-level discussions in regular classes
I know that.
all the time.
I feel so
You
comfortable.
know,
when
I used to
do that.
pride myself as an English teacher on making sure that I was asking questions that were not.
Higher
Yeah.
level, honor
Yeah.
level, and
Sure.
I'm thinking of what Jess said.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, we want all of our teachers to be using the level 3 and 4 DOK questions. And you know, it's very easy as a teacher with all the work that teachers do to slip into sort of the same practice of like asking very sort of straightforward questions because you're just looking to engage kids in like a Q&A rather than planning ahead with these like more sophisticated questions. And I do think that our teachers are getting much better given that type of framework, right? And actually planning for the DOK level questions 3 and 4. We know they're writing them in assessments because we're watching them do it. It's what part of the assessment literacy training they're doing this year. And some have just been doing it for years. But anyway, so that's where we are now. We are running the same courses with Earned Honors Credit next year as we continue the pilot. There are courses in art and music that have been like this for years. I mean, we're calling it a pilot this year, but no one seems to be asking about those classes. I feel bad for the fine arts and music teachers. But we are still going to run the 2 English classes. The design by the curriculum writing teams a year ago was that all of the non-honors junior and senior classes would eventually have an earned honors option, right? And they're designing those courses with that in mind. So not taking away or cannibalizing, as we can see from the course selection, the AP and Lit and Lang classes in English, right? But creating that middle option for the kids who weren't taking those courses anyway, right? So, and we're not there yet. And maybe we're not going to get there for a long time, but these courses are in the program of studies and kids have signed up for them as earned honors for next year already, as you saw from the slide earlier.
Why didn't you used to put the notation on the transcript, that it was earned honors versus not?
Yeah, just for when we send our transcripts, that way they know, because students, we can't put honors on there until they actually earn the honors.
Okay, so it's until it's final, and then when it's final, then it.
Yeah. So everyone from first semester now has it on their transcript.
Yeah, it's like it's on the designation, so colleges, we also, just like we designate and explain our crazy weighted GPA system that no other school has, right, that it all comes down and that's explained, so colleges read that, and that's how they, yeah, and they unweight everyone's GPA, I mean, that's what colleges, the first thing that colleges do, right?
That's not my experience as well, but, and you said Evanston and OPR effort, or we're modeling our system on?
No, we just talked to
Collaboration with
them. Yeah, no, I mean, those are conversations that I had with their APIs, just as concept, right? It obviously looks very, very different than what's happening. The Latin school is the third set of administrators that I spoke to.
What about schools that have traditionally been Hinsdale Central career schools? Like the Triers, the Stevensons, the Lincoln, are they doing earned honors credit? And are we collaborating with them at all on anything like this? So, okay.
We continue to offer everything that we offered in the past, right? Just like they do. Right?
Yeah, it's,
yeah.
you know, Oak Park, OPR, and Evanston have never in the past been considered a computer school, but they were not schools that we would have said, oh yeah, let's emulate them.
Latin school, again.
I don't think Latin school is a peer school because.
No, and I'm
it's a
asking,
small private
and no
school.
one's actually saying that they're peer
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about
I don't know. I don't know.
21st
Yeah.
century education and talking about ways and getting creative solutions instead of stagnating and continuing to not provide students opportunities to access rigorous coursework. And so those just happen to be 3 schools that have been doing different things. It was very, very different than what we're doing. We're just talking about like theoretical concepts of just logistics. Honestly, I reached out to know like what happens in their grade book, what happens with communication to parents. So give this representation to say that we are modeling anything after Evanston, OPRF, or the Latin school, just to be very
I
clear.
mean, I would love to know what Stevenson, McIntyre, Nutria are doing with those middle grades. Maybe they're doing nothing, and maybe they should be.
I can share with you that they're asking us what we're doing.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's
Because, you know,
great.
we are a peer district to them, and they actually
Right.
look to see what kind of new and good ideas we have, and we
Right.
share them,
Right.
and how we're doing. In comparison, we ask them about their advisory periods and block scheduling, and, you know, to say that our districts, that our peer districts are the same by any stretch of the imagination is not as easy as it is, you know, if you just compare like SAT scores, right? Or the income or what we spend per pupil, right? So, I mean, our peer schools are peers in some ways, they're not peers in a lot of other ways, and we share ideas, and that's the beauty of having sort of administrators and collaborators that have long tenure, like working in other school districts and maintaining those relationships.
Have you guys tried anything else to address this middle group? And let me give you something that I thought about as context. I remember Arlen, or maybe it was a department chair, a science department chair, Julie, I can't remember
Mayor
her last
Robbins.
name. That is South.
Yeah, they're both named
Yeah.
Julie.
And I remember conversations a couple years ago about how they were trying to increase the number of students taking AP and honors classes at South. And they were marketing those classes, they were seeking out individualized students, encouraging them, trying to further their interest in a particular topic. And they had, at least if I'm remembering this conversation correctly at a board meeting, they had increased the number of students in AP and honors levels classes fairly significantly over a particular time period. Have we tried?
Yeah, so again, like that's not the goal. Goal is for us is building skills, right? And having students, just inviting students in and then not providing them support or allowing them in. That is actually not research-based or.
Well, I need to be doing it detriment because of that. But they were presenting it in a way that was a positive. So you're, and I get what you're saying. When you get to that AP class, you're like, why on earth did I ever do this? I don't have the skills because I've gone from 0 to 60.
Yeah, but we do lots of outreach with students. You know, we work with teachers. We do, you know, teachers are meeting with students to talk about course selection for next year. Yes, all of those things, right? And we continue to grow our AP enrollment. It tends to be the same students taking more AP classes,
Okay.
right? And so thinking about like how do we change how students think about themselves? How do we change? We know that these students are meeting state and national benchmarks. These students have the capacity. Something is preventing them, whether or not it's this mystique about what honors and AP means that's perpetuated a lot, right? Which we know is not always true, right? So those are ways, how do we just have these students get that experience? Again, dipping their toe in it and seeing it. Some of these kids might take this and be like, no, that's not for me, and that's
Because it could
fine.
also be, and I would say in many cases, it's also that unwillingness to make the sacrifices and to do that higher level work that's required of an AP, Cal, B, C, or, you know, I mean, there are many students, maybe a majority of students, who just don't want to put in that kind of time and make those kinds of
There could be,
sacrifices.
but these are sometimes very different students than we're talking about.
Maybe, but just having the
Yeah.
standardized skills and the standardized test scores doesn't mean you're going to be successful in that honors
I
AP class,
agree.
for sure.
Part of it is exposure. If we're trying to elevate that middle, and I'm giving, again, my poor daughter is going to bring into this. She was in, again, no honors classes in elementary and middle school. All her friends were in regular classes. She was in regular classes. So when she tested well enough to get into a couple of 4-class honors classes, she was scared. I don't have any friends in this class. So I don't think, and she had counselors talking to her. She had her, you know, we had teachers. I had her meet with some of the department chairs. And they were all encouraging her, you have the ability. I don't think that they're not unwilling, it's unknown and it's scary.
Right.
So she has a whole new group of friends now because now none of her former friends are in any of her classes anymore. So part of it was that comfort level. I have my pal with me in my class, and this
Right.
is scary enough, but I can have my pal with me. So I would hate to put and identify the middle group as unwilling.
No, and
I
I'm
think
saying
that-
some kids, we were talking about the various different, I mean, I totally agree with you. I was just talking about one aspect of those students, maybe not want to do this, one aspect. So just the standardized test score alone doesn't guarantee success. There are a lot of different factors that guarantee, or that lead you towards success in an AP honors class.
Right.
It's certainly not saying that, I mean, I think that kids in the middle often work harder than the kids who are in the AP and honors classes for whatever reason. And there's a variety of factors that go into what makes a successful student, I think. So, yeah, I mean, I've said enough, I probably talked enough, but
And I just think we have to be careful on how we describe our students, because I think part of what we're fighting against is when we say kids in the middle, that's how they're perceiving themselves. So I think we really have to be careful about our language, because that also, even if you have a student who is always, has that support and people saying, you can do this, I see something in you. We do have students who don't necessarily have that, and then when we identify them as kids in the middle, then they continue to see themselves as that. And even some of our, if you go back and you look at some of the slides, some of the students even said, I didn't think that I could do that, or I had never thought that I could do this, and this has given me an opportunity to do that. So I think that is also the purpose that we have to look at too, is we're also in education making sure that we continue to challenge all of our students. And I know we were trying to move on, so.
yeah, no. And I think it's late bloomers, I mean, there's a million different examples of why, and you're a late bloomer, you might have had the chance to take these types of classes in middle school, and you hear. I mean, I hear everything you're saying. I just, I guess my all I'll say is, you don't hear a lot about how to help protect, reduce the stress, support, that top 30% or whatever you want to say, that traditional honors and AP, and I get it, they have, on paper, it looks like it's easier for them, it looks like it's better, it looks like they've got the skills or whatever. I just would encourage you to make sure that those children aren't forgotten. That's all I'm saying. And you don't hear discussion ever, no board meetings, anything about that particular group of kids. And I just think you have to be fair. It has to be fair. That's all I'm saying. That's my biggest takeaway, is that it has to be fair to all students. And you can't do anything to help a particular group that's unfair to another group. As well-intended as it may be, and just perception and reality. So that's my final take.
I feel like you're asking us to treat everyone the same.
I don't know. I think in a big public school, it's really hard to do that.
Then we agree. But what I just heard you say is,
It's
don't
just-
make a change for some that isn't good
It's
for others.
just, you gotta be fair, and it's just, everybody, kids need support.
Because we
and all of
certainly
this.
wouldn't want one size fits all.
Right,
Right. I mean, that's what this argues against,
right,
is here's something where you can be in or you could be out.
right.
It can fit you depending on your desire, your readiness. You didn't even know you were ready until 2 weeks into the school year, and now you are. So this is as far from one size fits all as you can possibly get.
Right.
And we can certainly talk about the stress and level of the students who are in honors, which is far more than 30%. We're well.
Should have been at the PTO meeting today.
I should have come
Yeah.
back, in fact, I mean,
It's
it's
literally
Yeah.
the whole point of it.
What are we
All
at?
our SEL curriculum, all of our double reflections, it's 100% talking about what we're
I'm
talking
talking
about.
about things in the classroom.
That's
I'm talking
exactly what we're
Yes,
talking about. That's the
we
entire
are.
purpose of our new red double reflections. That is all that is coming out of that. So we could have a different discussion at a different time, but that is honestly, could not be further from
Well, I'm glad to hear after 10 years of being in this district that we're finally doing that. That's great. you know.
Good change sometimes takes a while.
It is. I mean, and let me just say, this, I mean, amazing school, amazing district, amazing teachers, amazing administrators for the most part. You know, it's just, this is a sore spot because I saw it for so many years and I see the stress and the anxiety these kids have. And like I said, this does not impact my children at all anymore. I just am here as one of 3 community members. Because
I'm gonna go ahead and try and make a really awkward transition then and
No,
say,
you do
10
that.
years ago, to use the 10-year term, we started talking about career pathways in education, right? And John has been thinking about these career pathways for a very long time and has been waiting super patiently to talk about all this incredible work that he's doing about career pathway endorsement. So take it away.
So I'll start with what Chris had said. Just we have actually, a lot of this isn't new. There are some new things that came through House Bill 1396. We have actually had pathways. If you look in our program studies from previous years, since I've been department chair in business, family, consumer science, and tech ed, those are the departments that I oversee. Just with suggested paths for students to take and courses to take, starting with Intro to Business, one of our earned honors courses, and kind of going on from there. We start with a lot of survey classes in my departments, and in Intro to Business, you can branch off into investment planning if you really like the finance portion, marketing, accounting. There's a lot of different options there. What's changed, or the pathways endorsements is something that's going to be new coming next year, is really just to have CTE courses that are introducing students to career exploration opportunities, which we already have and been doing in the district, as just a wide variety of high skill, high wage, or in-demand career fields, which is, we talk about this all the time in my teachers' classes, that they're ever changing. So that's one of the biggest things that we're doing. So currently the law, as it states, is that by the class of 2027, which is our current 8th graders, our incoming freshmen, we have to have at least one pathway endorsement, and then you can see in subsequent, really every other year after that, increase them. Not to say that we couldn't do more, it's just those are the minimums that the state is requiring. And the box over to the right is really is what the state has identified as those like career clusters for the particular pathways. So some of them, so for example, I have a family consumer science which has culinary involved in that. You can find that under the agricultural, food, and natural resources, but as well as you can find it under some of the health sciences. You can see we have some kind of crossover there. And they're also in various departments that don't fall under just CTE. Arts and communications would be our fine arts and English, finance is obviously business, human and public services are just different things that we offer. And I'll kind of speak to those in a second. This graphic kind of is how I would envision a current freshman to have a discussion that would start with their own individual plan. So the plan starts with the parents, the student, the guidance counselor, teachers in the classroom, and also something that we're currently working on as a district, which would be school links. Chris, if you ever want to add in on anything with that, but there's going to be some things set up on the back end that department chairs, I know I'm working on along with my other department chairs, just setting up for students to really set a 4-year plan for themselves. And the one thing that was always a hang up for me when thinking about that is I don't want those students to be locked into the plan, because that's my biggest, it gives me heart palpitations, because what we talk about on-ramps and off-ramps, you may take Intro to Business and hate it for a variety of reasons. And then you want to go take that art class and love it. I just want to make sure that we want to get them set up with a plan, but know that you can get off the highway and you can get back on it some way. But what the state has, that we have here, is kind of a 3-pronged approach, and I think about it just from my personal experience of becoming a teacher. All 3 of us here have education degrees. My background, my pathway was business education, English, social studies, history. So that's essentially what we're doing. We want to make sure that the students are exposed to those. And really, what can you do within those pathways of courses that we are currently offering in District 86? So this is just kind of a screenshot of where that goes. Individual plan, again, it's that school links, that communication with parents and families, as well as teachers. The professional learning is kind of that bridge. It is difficult to see. So, but basically over 9th through 12th grade, there's a variety of different things that we want to do. Career exploration could just be bringing in guest speakers, which, if your daughter's in Intro to Business, we bring in all of our classes, we are bringing in industry experts, whether they're local people. Our easiest low-hanging fruit is the parents of students in our class. We ask them really at the beginning of the year, any interest in coming in? And a lot of the students don't share that with their parents because they don't want mom or dad coming into the class. But we do our best to try and get them. We have some repeaters that have been coming in for 10 or 15 years that are in Intro to Business, finance people, marketing, people that own their own small business. At Hinsdale South, we have someone who was on Shark Tank and actually got actually struck a deal with Kevin O'Leary. He came back and talked to our classes. So there's all kinds of different opportunities really in the beginning to kind of pique that interest, and then in grades 11 and 12 is really that deep dive into some things I think that I myself and we need to start looking at more in depth are some of those work-based learning opportunities. And really our capstone courses is getting students actually out in the community and seeing, okay, you have an interest in this profession. We have a business work experience course and internships courses already on the books, and they're very successful courses, but we almost want to get those kids out there just to do some sample in whatever pathway they're choosing or working on, just maybe even a little bit earlier, so that they know. So a couple things of what they must include, and some of these are a little bit easier to tap into than others, an in-demand career field. Pretty generic, but also knowing that some of those things are going to shift. Cybersecurity now has 0% unemployment rate, and 10 years ago people might not have known even what it was or how to do that. So we're kind of working within that, and I'm talking to other districts and department chairs that I know, Leiden and things like that, that offer actually courses in cybersecurity and are pivoting some of their traditional computer courses to that realm, just to get kids exposure to those in-demand careers. Students are also required just to be in, the state calls them, and I talked to Chris about this, how we define gateway courses. To me, and I think Chris and I are on the same page, as long as they're on track in their English and math courses.
And on grade level.
Yeah, and on grade level.
Yeah, grade level.
So a career focus sequence is things that we've already had. Some of the other things that we're working at increasing is our dual credit opportunities. We already have a robust AP curriculum in District 86. Our dual credit is something that we fall behind on in some areas, and I've been working with College of DuPage as well as Moraine Valley Community College just to increase those partnerships and just work with our teachers to really, they're essentially adjunct professors when you're enrolled as a dual credit student, as well as, I was just at COD last Friday. I mean, the students are actually enrolled as students there. They can use their resources. They can get a student ID printed off at COD and use everything that they have there. Any other additional related courses in that pathway, and then really that professional learning experience is really that grade 11 and 12 is kind of getting them out there, letting the students get that exposure. So just kind of continue, one of the big questions that I myself am asking my staff, and have been working with Jessica Hurd, Eric Martov, assistant principal over at Hinsdale South, really are these the actual, what the work is like, and that's by bringing those guest speakers in, that career exploration point to that, and then just does this align with the students' interests? So making sure that the students are, again, we've met on-ramp and off-ramp, like you say you're interested in this as a freshman, I know 14-year-old John Madden had wildly different interests than I do currently. Business is something that I found that I had a passion on really like my junior and senior year of high school, which then I originally started as international business major and then switched to education. So knowing that this is aligned with what you want to do. And then really do the courses that we're teaching, are we giving them those skills? Like, are we relevant to what we're doing? Some of the things that I'd like to do are kind of is on the right, is increasing those dual credit and AP opportunities. Again, AP is robust in District 86. It's dual credit that we're really looking at. I have teachers, we have Zoom set up just with the different deans in COD in the coming weeks to make sure that we're aligned with really their curriculum. Because that's the biggest thing is, are what we offering aligned with what is essentially college level work we're going to have these students doing. The community relationships and partnerships, so I agree, it's just as WBL, our work-based learning, is just shadowing and just looking out to have just some sort of an advisory committee of district. It doesn't have to be a District 86 resident, but just having some of these people out there that are willing to take on our students in engineering, manufacturing, business, culinary. If somebody, we have parents in the district that own restaurants in downtown Hinsdale, and they come in and shadow and do those things. Just work site tours, getting kids that exposure. And then really it could be a 2 to 4 year plan. Our goal is to try and get these students in really at that freshman level, but also knowing that there is some of that flexibility in there so that they're not prohibited from achieving the endorsement. That's one of our goals. So here's the great unveiling. I should have had something else on here. No, it's good. Yeah. So next year the plan to meet our state requirement, this is something that's already been in District 86 as our engineering path. So just to fill it on that left column there, the state calls it manufacturing, engineering, transportation, and trades. For the most part, we have always called it locally really our engineering pathway for District 86. We also have, so engineering, we have a graphics pathway and a tech ed. In business, we have finance, entrepreneurship, different things. But next year, the plan here is we offer in grade 9 for students, we'd be looking for them to take in pre-engineering 1 and pre-engineering 2. Those are semester level classes offered with an honors option. That also the asterisk indicates kind of that dual credit. So some of the things that we are, so those are already have dual credit with Moraine Valley Community College. Really your freshman and sophomore year classes, if students take this path, as of now, we're looking to increase it, but after your sophomore year, you have 10 hours of dual credit. You get 4 in pre-engineering 1 actually, and 3 pre-engineering 2, and then another 3 hours in engineering manufacturing. So these are just kind of those orientation introductory to AutoCAD, things like that. As well as we are looking to increase just those explorations of bringing more people in and getting those students out, because in pre-engineering 1 and 2 is a lot of computer-lit project-based learning, but we want to get them out and see like, okay, you're doing this. There are people in the industry, and when we have open house and things like that, like, oh yeah, I use that same software. Like, just showing kids that it's out there. You guys see the overlap really in that grades from 10, 11, and 12 this is that skills development course, which just with the referendum passing, both campuses are able to offer. We now have a large manufacturing space, a wood shop in each one of them for students to expand, because engineering is not just designing it on the computer, it's actually then turning it into having the machinery and things like that, the CNC machines, to actually create that stuff. And our students are doing that. They were doing it on a much smaller scale pre-referendum, and now we're able to do a lot more in-depth things. And really we have, in the curriculum alignment process, we've shifted to calling it with our engineering capstone course. That capstone course is really a student-driven full-year honors level course where the students develop a plan with the teacher, and throughout that full year, they're tinkering is a very low level, but they're basically trying out different things that's working on a solution to a big problem. So it's really just, if you think about it, it's not the same as science, like there's SIRS and things like that, the inquiry and research, but it's really a student-led, student-driven, they've gone through this sequence, and it's just things that they may, are just working on for a full year with our teacher. In the future, so this is year 1, we are also working on we really want to work on growing our own. There's a national teacher shortage, so we have an invitation to teach course in District 86. We're working on, I think that's my next week, a Zoom meeting with COD, is getting a dual credit options for our invitation to teach students, and then that would fall under health sciences. I always get confused on, because they call the way the state calls their career pathways are a little bit different than what we had, so I have to get reading.
And just to offer a quick clarification, the reason we're talking about AP and dual credit classes is because there's a mandate of minimum 6 hours in the sequence that is either dual credit or advanced placement, really college option credit work, right? So we can't just put together any 4 courses.
Yeah.
The sequence has to be
a targeted
profession or career cluster
tied to that higher level college rigor.
with 60 hours of work experience and project-based learning.
So there's a lot of prerequisites that a lot of the stuff we are doing, some of it is more stuff that the state is requiring. The 60 hours of paid or supervised career experiences are things that we have done in a different form. It's just how are we going to incorporate it basically for students their sophomore through senior level here. So some of the ones that we're looking at in the future just is really the business and finance one is something that we're looking at. Again, it's just more that we found that the community colleges just sometimes to get accredited with them can be a little bit more laborious depending on what courses we're looking to do it with. So it's just something that's taking some time, but it's all high schools, all of my peers in other districts, we're all having these same conversations of just trying to increase these offerings for students and what fits either what you currently have or what are you looking to do over the next few years.
So does the student identify that they want to be in a pathway, or
So that would be, currently they have not. So next year's freshmen would be looking at students that are enrolled in pre-engineering 1 and 2. The teachers would then be explaining to them, hey, you're in because most students, even though their semester classes as freshmen, most people tag team those. It almost is like a year-long class for them. We're going to be explaining to them like, hey, here's kind of the path to success. The endorsement piece, and Chris, you could speak a little bit more, but it's essentially something that's going to go on to the diploma, saying that you were
But we have a feeling that there are very smart, well-meaning people at the state level who are still figuring out what the endorsement means.
Yes.
It is a state mandate that we have one career pathway, and right now what it means is they get an embossed logo on their diploma in the same way that if they pass the seal of biliteracy test, you get an embossed logo that says, I am literate in English and Spanish, or so, you know. So that's the practical outcome right now, but really, the experiential practical outcome is that we're gonna build sequences that if a kid, let's say, and you refer to School Links before, School Links, like Naviance, has I believe, a far more personalized and sophisticated program that allows students to sort of answer yes or no questions about like career fields that interest them. And we then get that information so that we can say to a kid, if engineering, manufacturing, transportation, trades comes up, right, we've got this career pathway. Would you like to start it? You don't have to commit to it, but would you like to be in it? This is the class that you have to take to start, right? And then if they say no, then they say no. But it's part of the personal plan, the individual plan, which is actually a component of the requirement of this, is that we have to have an individual planning portion of it that starts with School Links and the counselor, right? And really probably the department chair or whomever, the teacher of the courses.
So what happens if you decide that you want to do something like sophomore year? Let's say you took the kid who took interbusiness and hated it, sophomore year took pre-engineering and loved it.
Yeah.
Are they missing, because it looks like it's a
Yeah,
four-year
so we
plan.
have some, so there is some flexibility that we're still looking at. The potential, so architecture and design is one, because it's not dual credit. Could be one that you could take out to almost squeeze that into a 3-year sequence. The way we have it planned out and how it has been in the past is this is the traditional path for a student going through our engineering pathway. But we can make it flexible, but I know that this is really what, if you do these are 5 classes, but really if you take those 4, or the semesters, you're gonna set yourself up, and if you're committed that far, most, I would say 95% or more, maybe 100% of all of our engineering capstone students are going on to Purdue, either of those engineering students. They're committed to that.
But you pretty much need to know freshman or beginning of sophomore year
For this path.
for this path.
As we think to design other pathways, one of the
And there may be
reasons-
more,
yeah.
some of these can actually just be suggestions. So like,
Yes.
for example, because you have to have the 6 credit hours of dual credit or AP, like, for example, you have to do pre-engineering 1 and 2, and that would actually, that's 7 hours right there,
Okay.
right? So you have to hit those, and then suggested courses of completion. Again, as long as you're doing some of these other ones on the bottom, that's why we want to keep you within that group, or it's not a cohort, but it's just really of those kids. It's just because there are other things that the state is requiring, the 60 hours and things like that.
And as next year is the first year of full implementation of one career pathway, as with everything else we've experienced over the last 2 decades in education, there will be responses to the practical needs of kids in schools as we communicate back. It's really hard, like, it's really hard to get dual credit classes. We have to have our teachers have the right certification, and then we have to have enough of them so that it's fair to offer that course across the spectrum, right? And at both campuses, right? So that becomes a challenge.
So it's just working, the biggest thing that I've worked on this year is just creating that partnership back and forth with really COD, because that's our community college feeder, and that's where we get a majority of our dual credit with. But yeah, it is just a lot of, from my realm of CTE department chairs, this is the flavor of everyone is laser focused on this, because there are a lot of districts that aren't as far along as we are, and there's some that are further.
The most granted diploma endorsement so far, I believe, is the
the education pathway.
Yeah, our sister school to the
Down to the northwest.
west, right? Down to, anyway, yes, west. They had.
They were on it pretty early, and I think they had like,
students, yeah.
it's on their, like maybe 30 kids over the last 2 years or something like that. Yeah.
In that pathway.
Yes, in the education one, and that's the one that I think we can get some, and that homegrown talent is something that we are looking for, because especially in my area, finding teachers in career and tech ed is extremely difficult.
That's so surprising to me. I just feel like that's such a great.
Some of them, like a lot of the careers are high wage careers. You
Yeah.
can make more money not being a teacher. Is something that, but yeah, we had a couple. We have a few people that, I mean, at South, it's the Hinsdale South grad, is a tech ed teacher, and we've definitely been, he was targeted in a good way back then. But yeah.
I think this is great. I think it's going to help so many kids. You know, you see them get to college, they thought, I have no idea what I would major.
You just took the, you just need to hit your credits. Like, that's really what a lot of kids, like, highest GPA, and did I get my credits? And now it's at least like, I like this.
Dual credit is tricky. My son went to Fenwick High School and did at least one dual credit class, and they've done more than that. And it's tricky, like how different colleges accept it, don't accept it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the tricky thing. And so I don't know how you know, get the information that.
Just, we talked about this with Jen Muir, Director of Counseling, Mike Hollander, where it's same thing that with COD, is the website called Transferology?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, that's
Use
a great site.
Transferology, yeah, you type in the course
I
code
saw
of
that the other day.
COD, and it will
Yeah.
tell you, I think, what universities
Yes,
accept it.
you put the university in that you plan to go to, it'll tell you exactly what they'll give you this year. I have an account, even though I'm not a college student.
I have an account
Just
too.
so I can,
Just sounds like
Yeah.
a fun, it just sounds like a weird, but it's
Yeah, and
Transferology.
it's slick, like,
Yeah.
it'll tell you AP credit too, yeah.
yeah.
Like
And
traditionally in what school, yeah, what they have accepted. I don't know if it's guaranteed on there.
No, it's based on last year's offering, so you can assume that it's similar, but schools change. And legally, just so you know, I mean, if you ask like, why are we looking at other schools? We have to look at COD, and if COD doesn't offer it, then we can move outside of COD because they are our institution locally.
And
Right,
for
so we
us,
can't just say like, let's do dual credit with somebody in Arkansas, you know, like that doesn't work, yeah.
There's, and to be clear, we do have we work with Moraine Valley Community Colleges because we were ahead of the dual credit game
That's right.
10 years ago, before that law was
Yes.
put in by the state.
Right.
So we are grandfathered into still working with Moraine Valley for this. Most if not all of our future courses will be this.
We have a few of Loyola.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is great too, because so many people, you know, just, oh, I'm gonna go into business. I don't know where else I'm gonna be, I'm gonna go into business. And my older daughter's in business, it's been great for her. But it's just nice to expose them to other options, because that's just such an easy go-to. Right.
Well, to go along to what we talked about earlier, like, we have a club, Business Professionals of America, we have nationals, I used to sponsor it, we would bring kids to nationals, we're like, you need business class? Like, they qualified for nationals, they'd never taken a business class, because they had said, well, we didn't offer any honors classes, so they didn't get their rated GPA, and that's why they didn't take any of our classes, and they weren't exposed to that path that we have, but it's an interest to them, so.
Mike Zimmerman is the director of the Technology Center of DuPage, and they're very helpful. They've been very helpful. They offer a number of classes. A lot of our kids can go junior, senior year to do some really, truly like hands-on certification, you know, for some.
It could be from cosmetology to
yeah.
welding to
Yeah.
fire science
Right.
to, they have things that just we don't offer autos. There are some schools, if you look around, they do, we offer autos.
I missed those.
Yeah.
The shop, the auto, my high school had
Yeah,
a
it's-
beat-up car in the basement in the class.
So one of the things that he said when he was talking about this is that one of the benefits of a program like a career sequence is actually exposing yourself enough to that sequence and the career that you might get into so that you know whether or not it's something you want to pursue post high school. You know, it's you know, you get 2 years into a business major and decide you don't want to do it,
Right.
it becomes a lot more, even financially and sort of like psychologically difficult to say, I think I'm going to change my major and extend my time in college by blank, you know, so there is some sort of just very practical value, you know, in addition to just all the opportunities and exposure that kids would have. But anyway, John's doing a terrific job and he's all over it. And I do not envy all the dual credit meetings that you're doing, but they're really important. Any other thoughts, since we are now at 8:45, only 45 minutes after, we've gone to 9 before, that you'd like to talk about or ask while we're here? Our next PTAC meeting, in case you want to be an audience member, is Tuesday, March 21st. We'll take some of your suggestions and talking points from tonight, put them into a slide or two as far as feedback, for feedback to show to that group. They'll get a lot of what was in this presentation, and just with some very distinct like stopping points to sort of discuss and then share out. We sort of do the protocol is kind of a group facilitator like Jessica or me or John, and then people just share their thoughts on several of the issues. It is during the day, it's teachers and community members. Our next community conversation, Dr. Carrie Smith will be running. She's super overjoyed about that. It's Wednesday, April 19th. It's at Hinsdale South. I don't know a room yet. We probably don't need the whole auditorium, so we may move it into a smaller room. 1:30 to 2:30, and the topic is student discipline, our student handbook, and anything else we decide in the next month needs to be as part of that discussion. And then that meeting will be followed by a PTAC meeting with the same content. And if you're looking way far ahead, our last series is about our portrait of a graduate findings. Our student leadership groups have been doing a lot of work over the last 2 months, talking about what it means to be like what do we call them? The traits of a successful District 86 graduate. What are they? What do they look like? How can we sort of like talk about them, and how can we use those traits to help inform our teachers, our students, our decisions, like a number of things. So they've been hard at work on that, and we'll be ready to share their work and our team's work at that very last series. So we hope you come. That's about it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your
Thanks, guys.
time. I'll make sure these lights go on so everyone can not run into books.